Adrienne, Senior Developer Advocate for MongoDB, and I'm here to talk to you today about serverless socializing. So what does this mean? Well, recently, when I joined MongoDB, we were not able to be in person, much like this painting. I have not met many of my coworkers. In fact, a lot of our interactions are really like this. I haven't met my manager, I haven't met any of my coworkers, and aside from work meetings, when we try to socialize and try to talk to each other, try to get to know each other, it's very rare. You know, it's very hard to do it in this way, but we try. We try, and we do something like this. We play some sort of online game. I don't know if you've heard of Jackbox, but it's some sort of cloud-based game where everybody can interact with each other. And they do some sort of game, and this is our interaction. This is our socialization. This is the way we get to know each other. And of course, as I start to go through this, and I think about this, and I see these different types of games that we go through, I immediately think, well, how do I make this? How do I do this? And something very similar came up in my mind. So I don't know if you've ever seen this Tumblr. It's called Classic Programmer Paintings. No, that doesn't work. And what happens is somebody will submit a very interesting-looking painting. And what they will do is they will add some sort of tech-related caption to the painting. So for example, this painting, somebody says, AWS Lambda attempts cold start of Python ML container. So they put a kind of a funny caption describing the picture. And they do this for a variety of pictures. In this case, somebody submitted this photo, and they captioned it, the code reviewer. So this is very, very funny to me. This is exactly my type of humor. And I said, you know, it would be interesting if I could make this into some sort of game. And so that's exactly what I thought of. I said, how do I make this into a game? Let's see if this works. Oh, the clicker works. So when I think about this game, I say, you know, when you have this idea and you first start thinking of how to create something, you start to have some ideas in your head. You kind of get an idea of what you're going to use, what tech stack you're going to be interacting with. And in this case, I knew I was going to use something with MongoDB because I work there. I knew I was going to use MongoDB Atlas, which is our database as a service in the cloud, because it's very easy to spin up and it's very quick. And this is something I wanted to just get done right away. I wanted to create it very quickly and start playing. I knew I needed some sort of front end, so I wanted to do something similar. I wanted to show a picture, and I wanted to enable people to enter a caption, similarly to how the Tumblr page showed different captions. And in this case, I chose React just because it's the quickest. In this case, I also added Realm. So Realm is something not a lot of people are familiar with, but is something MongoDB now also has recently acquired. So if you've heard of Realm before, it is a very, you might have heard of it before if you have done any type of mobile development. Realm is what they use to be able to interact with objects on local storage on any device. And they also have something called Realm Sync, which enables you to use or to build offline-first applications. And backed by MongoDB, it makes a very, very good pair and a powerful combination. I needed some sort of auth, because if I'm going to use Realm, you need to have some sort of authentication, even if it's anonymous authentication, which is what I've pretty much decided on, because I wanted everybody to play. And of course, I wanted to use functions. I wanted to get up and running quickly. I wanted to play the game with my coworkers. And so this is the fastest way that I could think of to insert some sort of game logic. And then finally, I needed a place to grab the paintings, right? That's the whole point of this entire game. And so I scoured the internet, and as most things, I found an API from the Met, which was an open API that allowed me to grab the URL of different random paintings. So all of this together is stirring around in my head. I said, all of this I'm going to use. I'm going to use this for this. I'm going to use MongoDB for the data store. I'm going to use Realm and functions for the data logic. And how do I put it together? This is how I put it together. So we'll explain very quickly. So We start with MongoDB Atlas. This is going to be the data store. This is where I will be storing information about the game, information about the players if I decided to extend this, information about the paintings or the cards that we were going to be playing with. And this is very easy to do because it is in the cloud, and that enables me to scale up and down as I need to. If this ever became a AAA hit, I doubt that. Next, we link it to MongoDB Realm. So MongoDB Realm is what allows me to build these functions. The functions are what I'm going to use for the game logic, creating an actual game, selecting the winner, choosing a random card. Functions allow me to add this logic in, as well as to make a call to that Met API that I just showed. And that's that part right there. So I'm going to get an external call to the Met API. And all I really needed that for is to get a random photo. And out of that random photo, I need the link, the actual image link that I can place onto my front end. All of that is now connected to my front-end application, which we'll see in a very, very shortly. So this is I would use create React app, very quickly stood something up. And using the Realm Web SDK, this allows me to call the functions that I've created in MongoDB Realm. But another really interesting thing, and the way I'm able to do almost real-time, or pretty much real-time with interactions and changes, are with something called change streams. So change streams, they're similar to sockets in that from my client, I'm able to establish a change stream directly to the database, and this looks for changes. So if anything is updated in the document, if a new document is inserted, if something is deleted, it will know that that has happened, and I can hook into that change. And that's very useful because this allows me to immediately show other players, this is the art piece I've selected. This allows me, as the host, to see all the submissions coming in at real time. And so this is a very powerful way, a very quick diagram of how this is put together, and it's actually quite simple after you think about it and put it together for a while. But this is the beauty of serverless, is that when you have an idea like this, something that just pops into your head and say, that would be something pretty cool, it's very quick to build this up. We built this in probably 2 to 3 days. It could still be extended, it could still be polished, of course, but it works. So how do you play the game? Well, let's play it. Feel free to scan the QR code or go to the link, and we'll see how it works. Let me get my mouse here. How do I do this best? OK. All right, so you should come to a page that looks like this, right? Is everybody going to get some nods in the head? Good? Everybody on this page? All right. So I will be the host. I'm going to be the one that selects the art piece, and you will all be the ones that will be submitting a caption. So very quickly, let me choose a photo, and I might as well show you now. So in order to join this game, this is the host page. And right now, I have not enabled submissions yet, which is why you don't see anything. But very firstly, I don't know if you can see that, where you see the place that says Join Game, go ahead and enter that ID. And I can temporarily increase that so it looks easier. Enter this ID into that Join Game input box. And let me know if you're able to join. It should say host is selecting a winner. There should be nothing on there. All right. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a random art piece. I'm going to select one that you're all going to submit a caption for. So this one's not really that interesting. And it takes a while, right? It's pulling randomly from the Met API. This one looks good. So I'm going to set this as the active one. And now I'm going to enable submissions. And you'll see here, submissions, I'm now waiting. So go ahead, you should see an input box for you to be able to enter a sort of submission. Well, I think somebody entered one, not yet. I'll go ahead and give you some time. So do you see a card? Do you see that picture? Do you see that photo? And do you see a card? You should be able to. No? Let's see. Oh, wait, sorry. Enable. Now you should be able to. There we go. We see submissions coming in. That was my bad. I accidentally disabled. So let's see what else is here. We have cleaning tech deck, not using serverless, serverless deploying my fat function, filling. These are really, really good. You all have a very good sense of humor. Filling my S3 bucket, migrating a bucket, pair programming at the beach. These are all very funny. All right, I'm going to let it go for a couple more. Oh no, bug fix duty, use case. Python. All right, so I think that's enough. I'm going to disable submissions. And that should immediately lock you out, or at least right after, it should lock you out. And those are the change streams that work, which we'll go through in a moment. So now I have all of these submissions. I'm seeing all of the funny captions that you've entered in for this particular photo. And I actually did not get a good look at the photo, so let me see what that looks like. Ah, OK. So now I'm going to select a winner. And let's see, when it becomes difficult to hire experienced developers, I'll choose that one. So I'm going to choose that one as the winner. I'm going to select the winner. And you should all see now it looks like a card with the winning caption. Is that right? Good? Yes? Sweet. And that's in essence how the game works. So I took this concept of the programmer paintings. I wanted everybody to be able to come up with the funniest caption that they could, and I wanted them to be able to do that in this fashion. And that's exactly how we did it. And so now I want to go through the actual internals to see a little bit further how this works. And so let me change the display really quick, because this is going to confuse me. So what do you win? Come talk to me. I can probably get you MongoDB swag, but all right. So let us go to MongoDB. So if we take a look, we'll start with the data here. This is very small. So you'll see here the beauty of using MongoDB at least, or any document database, any cloud-based database, is that you're able to scale this as needed. And specifically with document databases, you'll see here I actually started out with 3 collections. I had a games collection, I have an object IDs collection, and I had a players collection, which initially, when I was doing my brainstorming, I said, I'm probably going to need some information on my players. I'm probably going to need information on the Met object IDs or the cards in general, because maybe I want to reuse these cards. Maybe I want to have a specific set of cards or a deck that I want to reuse. And maybe players can have some information on their username or any preferences, things like that. But in the end, I ended up not using them, and that's OK. And that's a really nice aspect about building these kinds of quick proof of concepts or games, because you don't have to have that strict adhesion to this kind of structure. So this is where all the magic happens. I've decided to just, for simplicity, throw everything into the games collection. The games collection will be the source of truth. So every document, anytime a new game is created, a document is created, and that will hold the ID, it's going to hold the submissions, it's going to hold the owner of it, and that helps me identify who is the host. In this case, they are the only ones who are allowed to enable submissions, and also the only ones who are allowed to select a winner. And so you'll see here I did lots of testing to make sure that this worked. Let's see if we can find the one that we just were on. I have a lot of. And here, I must have missed it. Let's refresh, actually, because. And these are not ordered, so we should see it here in the bottom here, or not. OK, anyway, this is what the object looks like, right? So we have the game ID, we have the owner, and in our functions that we'll look at later, this is how we determine who is allowed to select the winner and who is not. allows submissions. This field here is what I use to be able to tell the game, yes, you're allowed to submit submissions right now, or no, you're not. And then the image URL is what I use to store the actual image that I've selected. And in this case, let's go to one that actually has some data here. So here's one. So as you start to submit your submissions, this is added into a submissions array. This is how I'm able to see all of the different captions that have been coming in. So that's the data. It's not as interesting, but it's there. This is acting as the data store. Now, the more interesting portion here is Realm. So Realm, as I've mentioned before, is not only a mobile database, but it also has a lot of back-end services that you're able to use. Especially if you're using MongoDB as your data store, there are a lot of things that you can hook into that work in tandem with the database. So for example, the functions that I use, everything to run this game is right here. That's all that is necessary. To create a game, what you can do is choose the authentication type that you need. In this case, we are using anonymous authentication with Realm, which means anybody can join. You don't have to use an email or password or choose an OAuth provider to get in. And in here, you can decide what the function does. So here, what we're doing is randomly generating a game ID because we want to be able to have unique games that you're able to join. And in this case, I'm just going straight into MongoDB Atlas and generating that ID and inserting that source of truth, or inserting that new document that acts as that game. And the more interesting thing here is, so we get a random art card here. So here, we are able to make those external calls to APIs. So this is an example. If you needed to do something else and call another external API, if you needed to connect to Amazon Event Bridge, for example, so if you don't want to stay in the MongoDB ecosystem, you don't have to, but you can use this as a source that eventually feeds into Event Bridge. But in this case, getting the random art card, the Met API, this is the format. And really, they list it by some object ID. So we just generate, or we pick one. This was kind of a finagled way to do it, but we looked for a specific set of object IDs that I knew had some sort of interesting painting on it, something that made sense, because some of the other objects from the Met API are like a little piece of pottery, and you'd have to be very, very humorous to come up with something for that. So we've limited the amount of object IDs there, and we're just simply choosing a random one right here. So we're out of this entire collection. We choose a sample size of 1. We get a request. We make a request to the API here, and then we get that response. Now, the other one here, select winning caption. Again, this is where we are implementing a little bit of authorization here. So that owner ID, when we create the new game, it stores the owner ID. It stores via local cookie who the person was that created that game. And in this case, when you're about to select a winner or enable or disable submissions, it checks against that owner ID. So, that was a thing that I thought of, or what you see the URL. What if you directly went to the host URL, right? You can possibly see those buttons, but if you click on it, it will know that you don't have the owner ID stored locally in your cookies, and so even when you tried to hit this function, you wouldn't be able to. You'd get a 403 because you are not the actual owner of the game. And let's see, the one other thing I'd like to show you are the change streams, which is what allows me to do the near real time of what's happening in the game. So let me find the host page. Let's close all of this. So let's find on click. Where did I put it? Oops, it's possibly on the caption change. Here it is. All right, and so for change streams, we are importing the Realm app. Well, let's start here. So in order for us to use the Realm SDK, we have our app ID, which ties to that Realm application I've shown you on Realm. And from here, we also are using the Realm Web SDK. This allows us to connect into not just the credentials, which are provided by Realm, but also the functions that we have created. And so you'll see here, these are some of the functions, right? Submit caption, it's the same name as the functions I've had. But the interesting part here are the change streams. So here we are just instantiating a Mongo client. And here is how we have access to that stream. We're essentially hooking into the collection that we specify, and we say, hey, make sure you watch this collection, and anytime anything changes here, do something with it. And so in this case, for this particular change stream here, we're watching the full document. We want to watch the entire game that is happening. And this is being worked on right now in the Whelm SDK. But what we're doing is, once any changes have occurred, we do something. And in this case, when a change has occurred, this is the game page. So when any changes have occurred, we will actually update the submissions on here onto the page. And that is pretty much it. It's very close, very quick game. Let me now go back to the slides. We're kind of sharing slides here, so bear with me. But yeah, that is it. I'm very happy to answer questions. This was more about getting the conversation going, and I would love to answer your questions about how it went. But the point of building this and the point of showing you this is, number one, serverless is a really great way to get really quickly up and running, to build something that is useful, something that is fun, especially if this is your first foray into serverless. It's a great way to see how the parts work. It's a great way to see how do you actually connect these pieces together and get all of the technologies that may be swimming around in your head into some sort of concrete architecture. And in this case, things that are somewhat scary, things that are intimidating, like something that's real-time, something that is multiplayer, those are all very complex things to achieve, especially if you do them at scale. But when you start out with some sort of structure like this, it's easy to add onto it and to extend it. And so I hope you see that serverless is a really great jumping off point for any of these types of projects, and that they can also be a little bit fun. They don't always have to be an e-commerce app or something very industrious or corporate. They can always be something fun. And so, merci beaucoup. I'm very happy to answer questions either here or outside.
Thank you so much, Adrienne.